The first thing Xarin Dole noticed was the smell. It wasn't bad, exactly. More like an overwhelming mix of sterilized metal, ozone, and something vaguely spicy that clung to the air like static. He stood near the airlock in his standard-issue Earth Liaison jumpsuit, trying not to touch his face. His gloves were off protocol, and it was taking every ounce of willpower not to rub his eye. It itched. Badly. Across the docking bay, 6 alien students huddled behind an environmental shield, their forms shifting slightly under their containment suits. Each was a different species, each with its own distinct approach to looking horrified. One of them, a tall, willowy being with translucent skin and a cluster of pulsing nodes along its arms, leaned forward. "Is it loose?" it asked, voice synthetic through the translator. Xarin blinked. "Is what loose?" "The bacteria," the alien said. "The ones that live on your skin. The ones that multiply when you breathe." Xarin sighed. "They're not like roaming around. They don't have little legs or anything." Another alien, squat and armored with overlapping plates, raised a hand. "You contain them in your lungs, yes? Is it safe to exhale?" "I'm not a walking infection," Xarin said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Earth bacteria can't survive long in open space. This room's been cleaned. We've sterilized everything 6 times. "Then why are you still covered in them?" asked the willowy one. Xarin scratched his head. "Because I'm alive. That's how life works. We coexist with microbes." The students recoiled as if he'd said he lived in symbiosis with a swarm of acid-spitting slugs. Xarin took a deep breath, then immediately regretted it. The itch in his eye flared. He squinted toward the observation window, where Dr. Ankra, the alien researcher who had spearheaded the interspecies student exchange program, was watching with folded arms and a look of growing concern. "Can I just—" Xarin turned toward the sanitation station. "I'm going to wash my hands." "No," shouted the squat one. "Don't spread it. I'm washing them, not launching spores into orbit." He stepped to the sink, activated the water with a hand wave, and pumped soap from the dispenser. The foam spread quickly as he scrubbed. "Watch closely," he said, raising his hands. "This is soap. It breaks down oils and proteins. That's how we get rid of bacteria. It's not magic. It's chemistry." He rinsed, shook off the excess water, then dried his hands. "See?" The willowy student leaned toward another. "It dissolved them?" "No," Xarin said. "It washed them away. With water." The squat one tilted its head. "So you flood your own skin to prevent outbreak?" "You wash your hands." "With foam." "With soap," Xarin corrected. "You rub it in, rinse it off. That's it." There was a pause, then a collective intake of filtered breath. The armored student stepped forward cautiously, held out a gloved hand. "May I attempt?" Xarin nodded. "Sure. Just don't eat it." The alien approached the sink like it might explode, tapped the activation pad, and stared in awe as water flowed. When the soap hit its glove, it shrieked. "It's transforming." "No, it's just lathering. That's what it does." The rest of the students edged closer. One of them, a gelatinous being with shifting hues along its outer membrane, reached out a pseudopod to touch the soap dispenser. Xarin stepped back, finally smiling. "See? It's not scary once you try it." "Your planet is terrifying," the willowy one muttered. Xarin turned. "You're the ones who breathe nitrogen peroxide and eat minerals. I think you'll survive a bit of lavender-scented hand soap." The gelatinous alien, who had yet to give anyone a proper name, retracted its pseudopod and stared deeply at Xarin. "What if it mutates and resists the foam?" "It's soap," Xarin said slowly. "It's not a vaccine. It's not a cure. It's just a way to clean. You use it before and after things. It's part of hygiene." "I swear, you won't mutate." The armored student was still scrubbing its glove as if the foam had become a secret code. "Your species developed chemical warfare. For cleanliness." Xarin laughed, rubbed the bridge of his nose, then immediately gasped and stumbled backward. The itch had turned into a burn. Did it affect you?" the willowy one asked, backing up fast. "No, Xarin blinked rapidly. "I rubbed my eye." "Bad idea. You spread the skin bacteria into your ocular cavity." "No, he winced, blinking harder. "I think I had something on my hand. Soap, maybe." "It's not dangerous, just stings." The gelatinous student backed away, trembling. "He's dissolving." Xarin groaned. "I need water." "Not panic." He stumbled to the eye wash station, leaned in, and flushed his eye under the stream. The cold rush helped immediately. When he looked up again, All 6 students had retreated behind their barrier. "Tell us when you were no longer contagious," one of them said. "I was never contagious." Later that day, Dr. Ankra called him into the debriefing room. Xarin sat stiffly in the chair, still dabbing his eye with a cold cloth. "You terrified them," she said. "I showed them how to wash their hands. They thought you were shedding volatile microbes that would erode their skin. I explained soap." Ankra exhaled through her specialized mask. "You need to understand some of these students come from environments where microbial life is considered a planetary threat. One spore can destroy an entire ecosystem. And on Earth, we eat yogurt with live cultures." "Yes," she said flatly. "And that's why they think you're insane." Xarin leaned back, cloth pressed over his eye. "What do you want me to do?" "Teach them proper hygiene, sanitation, how to interact safely with Earth environments. You're already contaminated, so you're the perfect instructor." "Thanks. You'll get a lab, supplies, a translator, and protective suits for them." Xarin blinked. "You're serious?" "I am." He looked up. "What if they still panic?" "Then you'll teach them how not to." By the end of the week, Xarin had converted the lower lab into a hygiene training center. He had soap, sanitizers, UV lights, and 3 industrial sinks. The students arrived in layers of suits, each more reinforced than the last. "Welcome," Xarin said, gesturing to the setup. "Today we're going to learn about biofilm." The squat one raised a hand. "Is it a weapon?" "No. It's a layer of bacteria that forms on surfaces. It's why we clean things. Biofilm is sticky. It resists water. You need friction and soap to remove it." The gelatinous student quivered. "So you scrub your own surfaces?" "Yes. Even the delicate parts. Especially those." The class fell silent. Xarin picked up a brush. "This is a tool. It doesn't kill, it cleans. Observe." He dipped it in soapy water, scrubbed a tile, then ran a UV light over it. "No more biofilm." The squat one leaned forward. "It's gone. Gone." The willowy student stepped up. "I wish to attempt." Xarin handed over the brush. "Go wild." The alien scrubbed, tentatively at first, then with growing enthusiasm. By the end of the hour, all 6 students were taking turns, each more eager than the last. Xarin watched them, still dabbing his irritated eye, and muttered, "Soap." Who knew? As the willowy one passed him to grab more foam, it paused. "You're still leaking." Xarin glanced at the cloth. "Yeah, minor irritation. Should we sterilize you?" "No, just patience." The alien hesitated, then held out a small bottle. "This is our antiseptic. It might help." Xarin took it, surprised. "Thanks." The alien tilted its head. "You taught us to fight bacteria with foam. It is only fair we return the favor." He smiled. "You're learning. Fear is not a sustainable education model," it said. Xarin blinked. "That's surprisingly wise. I read it on the soap bottle." He laughed, for real this time. "Good to know Earth wisdom is getting through." The alien cocked its head. "There was also something about cucumber extract." "Is that a weapon?" Xarin groaned. "We've got so much work to do." The first allergic reaction happened on a Thursday, just after breakfast, and precisely 22 minutes into the module on nasal irrigation. Xarin had just finished demonstrating the saline rinse technique using a squeeze bottle and a rather dramatic plastic replica of a human sinus cavity. The students had observed in fascinated silence. Then the gelatinous one, now going by the name Yule, vibrated sharply and released a loud, wet sound like a boot being pulled from mud. "Something is wrong with my containment membrane," Yule said. "It is attempting to retract." Xarin turned, still holding the bottle. "You all right?" "I think so. But my outer layers are experiencing involuntary oscillation." Xarin dropped the sinus model and grabbed a towel. "Did you come into contact with anything unsealed?" "I may have. Absorbed trace droplets from the demonstration table." "You mean you touched the saline?" Yule wobbled. "It smelled safe." Xarin knelt, checking the floor. "It's just salt water, same concentration as your body's fluids. It shouldn't cause a reaction unless wait. Does your species regulate internal viscosity through ionic balance?" "I don't know what that means." "Do you dissolve in brine?" "I've never been in brine." "Okay, sit still. Don't panic." "I physically lack the ability to panic." "Great. That makes one of us." Yule's membrane quivered, then began slowly retracting from the surface of the lab stool. Xarin reached for the emergency hydration unit under the bench and sprayed a fine mist over Yule's form. The gelatinous mass stopped retreating. That feel better? Yul pulsed faintly. It is like being embraced by fog, but less clingy. Noted. Will marked saline as a potential irritant. From across the room, the willowy student, Tren, raised 2 elongated digits. Why do you rinse your respiratory channels with liquid? Does it not drown your airways? It clears mucus and allergens, Xarin replied, still misting Yul. Humans have sinuses. They get clogged. You flush them. It's not pleasant, but it helps. That sounds like a self-inflicted flooding ritual. It's not ritual. It's maintenance. Your body requires internal plumbing upkeep? Yours doesn't. Tren hesitated. I release spores through my clavial vents once per solar cycle. Does that count? Only if you do it with a squeeze bottle. Yul's vibrations settled into a slow ripple. I am stabilizing. Good. Don't experiment with unknown fluids. I was trying to understand your practices through taste. Use your eyes next time. By the end of the session, 2 more students had asked to try the nasal rinse. Xarin refused. One had a circulatory system based on mercury vapor and the other expelled internal waste through a dorsal gland located below its neck cluster. Neither had anything remotely resembling sinuses. Later that afternoon, a formal complaint arrived from the quarantine board on Deck 6. Dr. Anchor's message was short. Please clarify the incident with the gelatinous student and the saline mist. The board is concerned about biochemical cross-reactions. Xarin typed back. It was salt water, not acid. No mutations observed. The reply came within seconds. Please avoid exposing students to earth fluids, even benign ones. Also, the board requests you wear gloves when handling teaching props. Xarin stared at the message, then down at his hands. He reached for the nearest glove box and pulled out a pair of nitrile gloves. Fine, he muttered. Gloves. Happy now, interstellar bureaucracy? The next morning, the entire class arrived early. Not just on time early. They clustered near the lab's decontamination field, murmuring in low frequencies and shifting in place with visible anticipation. Xarin stepped into the room, still tugging one glove on. All right. What's with the early start? Tren raised a hand. We have reviewed your organ diagrams. We wish to learn about the integumentary system. Xarin blinked. You want to talk about skin? Yes. We do not possess it. We are curious. Okay. I mean, most of you have some kind of outer membrane or exoskeleton, but it is not layered. Yours is. Yours sheds. Yours regenerates. That's true. It's made of cells that constantly divide and replace the old ones. Like a living barrier. Exactly. Yul quivered. Do you remove it manually? No. It sheds naturally over time. Do you harvest it? What? No. That would be weird. The squat one, now known as Gorik, shuffled forward. We found a document in the culinary archives. It mentioned skin masks and peel treatments. Xarin groaned. Those are cosmetic. Humans do weird things to appear smoother or younger. Why would you want to appear like an unripe fruit? It's cultural. Gorik tilted his head. Do you eat your skin? What? No. But you consume other parts of your bodies like nails. We have seen the footage. That's a nervous habit, not a meal. Tren extended a probe-like digit. May we observe a shedding event? Xarin crossed his arms. That's not how it works. It's microscopic. You can't just watch someone molt like a lizard. Are you certain? Yes. The students looked disappointed. However, Xarin added, we can look at skin cells under a microscope. I'll show you how they're structured. They perked up immediately. 30 minutes later, the class was gathered around the imaging station. Xarin pressed a transparent slide to his forearm, then placed it on the scope. This is a sample from the outermost layer. Dead cells, mostly keratin. Gorik squinted into the eyepiece. They are flat and overlapping, like armor scales. Right? They protect the living layers underneath. Tren leaned in. But they are not alive. No. But the body keeps producing new ones underneath. You'll rotate it slightly. So your body builds its own dead shield. That's one way to put it. Fascinating. My species extrudes a luminous gel once per rotation. It is less efficient. Xarin leaned against the desk. That sounds like a lot of work. It is. But we look amazing under starlight. The class took turns examining the slide, murmuring observations and jotting notes in their translation pads. One student, a small, insectoid creature with a chittering vocal pattern, asked if humans ever intentionally damage their skin to study healing. Only in controlled environments, Xarin said. For medical research. Healing is complex clotting, inflammation, tissue regeneration. We don't just poke ourselves for fun. Are you sure? We found footage of body art involving punctures and pigments. That's tattoos. Another cultural thing. You are a mystery, Tren said. You're not so easy to figure out either, Xarin replied. By evening, the lab smelled faintly of ozone and antiseptic. Tren lingered after the others left, his translucent arms folding with a quiet hum. What's up? Xarin asked, wiping down the counters. I have been selected for the interspecies ambassador exchange next cycle, Tren said. I may be stationed on Earth. Xarin paused. Seriously? That's huge. I'm uncertain. Your planet contains so many active microbial colonies. Your species intentionally introduces them into food. I fear I may not adapt. You will, Xarin said. You're already learning more than most humans know about themselves. That is not comforting. It should be. Tren's eyes glowed faintly. Do you ever fear your own biology? All the time. But I've got soap. Tren nodded slowly, then turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Do you truly believe one can survive Earth using only foam and common sense? Xarin smiled. No, but it's a good place to start. The lab lights flickered once, then adjusted to the dimmed setting Xarin had programmed for the final hygiene module. It was the last scheduled session before the students returned to their respective sectors, and the room hummed with a strange mix of anticipation and something Xarin couldn't quite name. Maybe the closest word was readiness. Not confidence, certainly not mastery, but a kind of informed calm. Like the way a person stands just before plunging into cold water. He pulled on his lab coat purely ceremonial at this point, as everyone present knew he wasn't a medical doctor, and glanced over the neatly arranged stations. No soap demonstrations today. No UV light shows. No artificial sinuses or microscope slides. Just one item per table, a sample kit containing a sterile swab, a pH strip, a nutrient agar dish, and a small data input terminal. Tren entered first, more upright than usual, his translucent limbs drawn close in what Xarin had come to recognize as a sign of focus. I have reviewed the assignment, Tren said. We are to locate a microbial sample, identify its basic properties, and neutralize it using appropriate Earth hygiene techniques. That's right, Xarin said, gesturing to the nearest table. You'll work alone. No group hovering. I want to see how each of you handles a live contamination scenario. You'll lose in next, wearing a slightly oversized containment wrap that trailed behind like a shimmering cape. Is this scenario simulated? Nope, Xarin said. Real environment. The samples will be from the surface of this very station. Gorik stomped in, already holding his kit. I have selected my test site. The waste disposal latch near the docking corridor. It is visibly hostile. Excellent, Xarin said. That latch is a microbial goldmine. By the time all 6 students had filed in and taken their kits, the room had gone quiet. Not tense, just focused. Xarin stood at the center, arms crossed, watching them fan out into the surrounding corridors. He tapped his calm, monitoring team, keep the sanitation gates unlocked and the deck and sprayers on standby. They'll need them. He didn't follow. That was part of the test. Each student had to identify, swab, culture, and neutralize a sample without direct human guidance. It wasn't about precision, it was about process. For aliens who had once shouted at the sight of soap bubbles, it was a massive leap. About 40 minutes later, Tren returned first. He moved slowly, carrying his sealed dish like it was a sacred relic. Xarin met him at the staging table. Where'd you collect it? From a recessed groove in the access panel of the observation deck rail. I observed discoloration and a faint odor. Xarin opened the log. And your pH results? Acidic, Tren said. Approximately 5.3. Likely skin flora. Any visible colonies? Tren peered at the dish. Multiple. Circular, opaque. No pigmentation. Good. What did you use for neutralization? Diluted ethanol wipe, followed by mechanical agitation. Excellent, Xarin said. You didn't just pour alcohol and run. You scrubbed. It felt appropriate. You'll return next, dragging a sealed case behind them. I found something growing in the recessed air vent above the hydroponics module. Xarin raised an eyebrow. Was it moving? No, but it was actively emitting gas. Okay, let's take a look. You'll open the case. Inside was a dish already blooming with a vivid green smear. Xarin leaned in. Algae variant, possibly cyanobacteria. Not dangerous unless you inhale it or let it spread. I deployed a baking soda paste followed by high-pressure rinse. Interesting choice, Xarin said. Why baking soda? I observed your documentation on mild alkaline buffers. I extrapolated. And it didn't foam excessively? Only a little. I contained the overflow. He nodded. You're learning how to improvise. That's good. The others trickled in over the next half hour. Gorik's sample was a patch of black grime scraped from the base of a refused chute. He had used a toothbrush, stolen from the lab's emergency hygiene kit, to scrub it clean. He hadn't asked. Xarin let it slide. The insectoid one, whose name no one could pronounce and who answered to a series of high-pitched clicks, presented a sample from the interior of a food dispenser. She had used dry heat to sterilize it, then sealed the interior with a barrier gel she synthesized herself from base compounds. By the time all the kits were logged and the samples neutralized, the lab smelled faintly of ethanol, citrus, and something else like old leaves after a rainstorm. It wasn't unpleasant, just unfamiliar. Xarin gathered them around the central table. You've all passed, he said. Not because you got the right answers. There are no right answers. You passed because you treated Earth microbes like something to understand, not fear. Tren lifted his hand. May I ask a final question? Go for it. Why are humans not more cautious about their own microbial ecosystems? Xarin thought for a second. We are. But we've lived with them so long, they're just part of life. You don't panic over gravity, right? Tren shook his head. Same thing. We're used to it. Sometimes we forget how weird that is to others. Yul quivered. Then why teach us? Why risk the exposure? Because you're going to visit Earth. Or humans. Or places where we've been. And I'd rather you wash your hands than incinerate a shuttle bay because someone sneezed. There was a pause. Then Gorik said, that remains a valid precaution in some systems. Xarin couldn't argue. Later that evening, Dr. Ankara arrived unannounced. She stepped into the lab, looked around at the clean benches and sealed sample dishes, and folded her arms. You didn't lose anyone, she said. I almost lost a toothbrush, Xarin said. Ankara approached the central table, picked up a dish, and examined it. Cyanobacteria, she said. From hydroponics? Yep. Neutralized with baking soda. She looked at him. That wasn't in your manual. They improvised. Ankara nodded once. The board was skeptical about your methods. I know. They said humans would be too casual, too organic in their thinking, too fond of tolerating risk. And they were right, she said. But so were you. Xarin leaned back against the sink. They're ready. I agree. She turned toward the door, then paused. Will you continue? Me? No. I'm done. My part was teaching them to wash up. Someone else can explain Earth's digestive tract. Ankara chuckled softly, a rare sound from her. Then I'll assign someone with a stronger stomach. Xarin watched her leave, then turned back to the students, who had begun packing their kits with surprising care. Tren stepped forward. I have replicated 3 types of portable sanitizers using your templates. May I distribute them during transit? Absolutely, Xarin said. Just don't mix the citrus one with anything alkaline. Understood. You'll pause near the exit. When I first arrived, I believed Earth life was a threat. And now, I believe it is inconvenient, but manageable. Xarin laughed. That's probably the most accurate description we've ever gotten. As the last of them left the lab, boots and glides and rippling membranes disappearing into the main corridor, Xarin peeled off his gloves, dropped them into the disposal chute, and looked around the room one last time. The soap dispensers were half empty. The brushes were worn. The microfiber cloths hung to dry. And for the first time in weeks, the lab was quiet. He turned off the lights.